So welcome to another unboxing video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at a brand new game, kind of, a brand new edition of a game that many of you will be familiar with, either from having played it or just the kind of the lore and the history and the nostalgia of the game, and that is Kingmaker. So this is Kingmaker 2nd Edition. It's produced by a company called Gibsons, and Kingmaker has a very fearsome reputation. It was one of those early, I think it was an Avalon Hill game, could have been SPI or Victory Games, I'm not sure, I don't remember. But like, my father-in-law has this game, it's in his basement right now, the old edition, and a lot of people played this early on in some of the early days of analog wargaming during those times. It had a reputation for being very long and being really messy but really fun, and like crazy alliances and traitorisms and all this kind of madness. But what they've done is they've tightened it up, given it a refresh, but what they also did is that they kept the original as well. So the board's double printed and they have all the rules for the regular edition, just a nice new facelift, and then there's the 2nd edition rules and 2nd edition components to play it that way as well. So I'm very excited for this package. 1 to 6 players, 2 to 6 hours playtime. That's right, 1 to 6 players. They created a solo mode, which I think is pretty neat as well. The box itself is quite a lot bigger and thicker and a bit heavier than the original. But, you know, we'll open up the map and the map will look very familiar to you from an aesthetic standpoint. Obviously, it's much nicer than the original one, but it still has that same look and feel to it that is, frankly, iconic. So, I first heard about this game when I was at UK Games Expo back in June, not even a year ago. They had a demo copy of it, and they were showing us, and they were really excited to kind of show off what it is and what it was and what it could be, and it sounded fascinating. It went to Kickstarter, I think, in August, and here we are, barely 6 months, like 7 months divorced from that, and here we are with the game in our hand. I cannot express to you how smoothly the Kickstarter went. You know, they even had like a delay or two, and of a couple of weeks once they redid some packaging, but it was extremely smooth, extremely professional, and I was just blown away by what Gibsons did with this, and huge kudos to them. So the box itself has a lot of stuff going on. So we have the Kingmaker Rulebook. This is Kingmaker the 2nd, right? This is the new rulebook. All sorts of examples and illustrations, 2-column, lots of guidance through this. If you've read the old Kingmaker rulebook, it's not like this. Lots of pages for notes as well. So really, really happy with this. Hopefully this should be a fairly easy game to kind of pick up and learn with all of those illustrations and examples. Now we have, we'll get into these here in a second, I think something we'll do. So then we have the Kingmaker Classic, right? This is the original Kingmaker. These are the rules for the original Kingmaker. They just added lots of different examples, and like the rules are significantly smaller. And then we have the extended Classic Kingmaker rulebook, which has all the optional variants and bits like that as well. So it's a dual-use, dual-sided rulebook for playing the old edition, if that's what you wanted. Totally fine if that's what you wanted to do. Then we have the Kingmaker, here, let's get it the right way around here. Kingmaker the Solo Challenge. And again, I will double check this, but my understanding is that this is for the classic edition of Kingmaker, not the new one, because I think the classic one was a bit more straightforward, putting a solo version into it, if I am remembering that correctly. And then there's a little play aid for combat with regards to the solo bot as well, so that's the solo stuff. Then we have the Guide to Kingmaker. So just kind of a useful play tips, it looks like, and some turn 1 bits and pieces of things to maybe look at, guiding you through some of those steps. A little mini playbook, think of it that way. Then we have play aids. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 4 play aids. and I think these are all identical. So these are a bifold. You have your location grid references, and this is nice, so that you don't have to go and nose around on the board, moving pieces to try and look at names and kind of giving away some of the strategies and tactics you might be looking at. So this is a nice little reference. And then here we have our table of odds, which is quite large, terrain effects chart, and how to use, and then your odds calculation table. So we have 4 of those. We have a small little sheet of stickers. When you finish playing, put the pieces away in the envelopes and seal them shut using these peelable stickers. There's an envelope for each colored set, and 1 more for the extra pieces. Interesting. Nice little storage solution that they come with. Alright, a couple sheets of counters. I got this one upside down here. Let's turn this around for us. Okay. So these have a light linen finish to them. I don't know if we can catch that in the light here, but these are really thick grey core counters. You're going to punch them out, and they got the lovely heraldry on them. These are wonderful pieces. This is our little battle board, where you're going to put your pieces on it and conduct your battles. The other factions, so if we look at the back, they have there. I don't know what the term for it in this game is, but they garrison side. They're like in a little castle, so to speak. Got some ships for our ports, a little start player marker, and a prestige victory. That's a particular tile for winning the game. Solo challenge, game turn bot play aid. So this is another play aid for solo mode. You can see they have they're all color coded on the side. So these kind of I don't even know what you would call that. Like that is a green color to me. There's a but that is this one of those envelopes? Is this one of the pieces envelopes that you're gonna fold over and put the sticker on? Could be. We'll see if there's more of those. Yeah, there's a bunch of those. I guess these are little envelopes for those. What I would say to you is that there was a significant and somewhat unexpected emphasis on sustainability for the game, and so like there's no like no, that's not right. All of the packing inserts and stuff is all card and paper for, instead of putting plastic bags in here for the pieces, it's all paper stuff. And then the shipping box and the shipping materials was all card and paper. So it was all fully recyclable and compostable. So I'm going to toss a lot of that into my compost heap in my garden. So I do appreciate that, but you have the option to use these for holding all of your little bits. I don't know. I presume these are not... I will use them just to test the durability of those. Will I get some baggies out of my massive drawer of bags that we all have? Probably. But a couple D6. We'll look at the board here in a second. So that's what I'm talking about. One of the delays was that they opened up all the boxes and stuck extra cardboard in for packaging, because some of the test ones, a lot of the packaging, like the bits were falling out. And they wanted to avoid that for international shipping, which I appreciated them taking the time to do that. Okay, we have, and again, all the cards, they're not plastic wrapped, right? They're just like a little paper sleeve. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these cards. And again, love the artwork on these. It's all, so this particular deck of cards, I don't know what this is, but this looks like it's, we have embassies, mercenaries go home, plagues, storms at sea, free moves, chancellor or may summon parliament, French raid. Looks like these are kind of like events, and probably not many of those sound very good either. And looks like there's a bunch more of those. That's all. These are all the same as well. Peasant revolt, piracy, revolt in Wales, Scots raid, clamour for parliament, mercenary to go home, war of summons to, writ of summons to parliament, parliament, Irish revolt. So we're either going to have one big old massive stack of events, or those will be seeded. And yeah, okay. And I think we have So there's some play aids here with the little sequence of play, so we can give those out. There's a lot of those. I guess that's all for all the different types of modes. Ah, okay, yeah. For the different factions, and I think we also got some. Yeah, okay. For all the different, it looks like different setups. So there's 4-player, 5-player, 2-player, lots of different versions of playing the game and that setup and sequence of play for those. Some titles, Duke of Lancaster, Duke of York, with I think their prestige points on them. And then all sorts of different historical characters. But again, the artwork on these is really, really, really nice. These are decent quality cards. Siege cards. And I think these cities might provide you prestige points. Prestige point victories. And I think of these titles, yeah, lots of different titles that you're going to assign to your characters. And I think there's limits on how many they can have. And the new version is about accruing these prestige points rather than the outright victory that you used to have in the classic version. I think these are more titles as well. All sorts of things going on here. And I don't know if one set of these is for the classic and one's for the new. I'm not quite sure about that and how those divide up, but we're going to keep those separate for now just so I don't mess them up. But there's a lot of cards in here, and the last thing we will take a look at is the board. And the board, okay. Let us open up Kingmaker. Here, let me move these out of the way. So yeah, again, I've never played this, but I have ogled my father-in-law's old copy of this for a while, and it is just like flat green, and it's kind of garish. So they put a little bit of kind of texture and some depth into some of the geography, just so it's a little bit more pleasant. It's not just like blue and green. Like, sure, it kind of is, but it's a little bit nicer to look at from that standpoint. It's much nicer. It's a lot nicer, honestly. But it still has that that very classic Kingmaker feel with quite the geometric overlays over things, which is just... It's fairly iconic when it comes to Kingmaker. It's like, oh yeah, you know the Kingmaker board when you're looking at it. You have holding boxes for all your different cards. Your army troop strengths, prestige points track over here, and then your stacking zones down at the bottom. And this is for Kingmaker the Second, right? This is the second edition. But they have on the back just dolled up a bit, just like the other one was, but it's the old version of Kingmaker. So you can see it's a slightly different map, it's a slightly different layout, everything's a little bit smaller and tighter, so there's a bit more going on. But you don't have the kind of prestige points and stuff like that, because the game is won in a different manner. The rules, it's a different game basically. I mean, it's a similar type of game, but it plays differently. But I just really appreciate that they put classic and all the components and a new rule book so that you can play this the way it was originally made, or you can play the new version of it. I thought that was just a really, really nice touch for Gibsons to do, and they didn't have to do that. But when they, like, I was excited when they were showing me this at the Games Expo, and then when he mentioned that they had Classic on the reverse side, and they would include the rules and components, I'm like, oh, this is like a surefire winner. Like, people are gonna love that aspect of it. So, I appreciate you sticking through and listening to me waffle about Kingmaker. I'm extremely excited to play this, and we will get to this at some point. I'd like to play a big game of this. Maybe we'll take it to a con, maybe we'll have this at WBC, so if you're there, maybe we can arrange a game of that. That'd be awesome. But appreciate you very much for tuning in. This is Kingmaker from Gibsons. You can go and order it from their website, and they ship it, I believe, out of the UK. And check it out if you're interested, but appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.